Hello everyone. Today I'm gonna talk about a little bit of current production tubes. They're made under New Sensor Corporation, which is basically part of Electro Harmonix. And we're gonna talk about the tubes that we have available today. So basically, the New Sensor Corporation produces a few different tubes. They're pretty solid tubes. They have a few reissues of the famous Tung-Sol and Mallard and famous Svetlana and Genelex. I don't have all of the examples, but I'm gonna give you I'll give you my little piece of thought on every example that I have and talk about a little bit. So starting from the left, here we have, this is basically a standard Electro Harmonix tube, ECC83 12AX7. This tube, I would say, doesn't have anything sonically special about, but yet it's a very solid tube, it's very reliable, and overall it's, I would say that everything in this tube sounds balanced, so it's very neutral sounding tube, which is something that perhaps you want or you don't want, but overall it does the job, and it's a good tube. Lacks a little character for my taste, but it does just awesome. Now here I have an example of, this is the same tube just in gold pin version, and the only thing I really use this tube, I purposely bought it for a phase inverter, and tell you what, it does a phenomenal job in phase inverter. It pushes nice warm sound. It's overall does really well. I would say this is perhaps to me a way better tube than it is, the standard non-gold pin version. Now I don't know if it's only the differences that the pins are being gold plated, or that they basically factory selected better performing tubes. I don't know, I can't say that, but I'm gonna tell you that this one in a phase inverter, in a guitar amp, sounds amazing. It really does its job really well. So this is a very recommended phase inverter tube. Now moving up to Sovtek. Sovtek's, I'm gonna call them like this, they do their job. Again, they sound very neutral, and they're okay. However, I'm not a huge fan of Sovtek preamp tubes. They do their job, like I said, it's gonna work. It's probably gonna last a long time. Like I said, all these New Sensor tubes seem to be very reliable, but just for me, it doesn't do it. So here I have, I wrote this myself. It's 12X7 WA. I wrote it down because the original writing, it almost faded, so I know what I'm having. This tube, I would say that, and the bass and the mids are nice and balanced, and perhaps the top end just a little bit bright, on the bright side, but that's okay. Overall, it does really well job. Now, second I have here is a, I don't know if you can see, this Russian tubes generally have very, very faded markings. This is a Sovtek 12X7 WB, and I personally prefer WA just a little better. This one seemed to be, at least to my ear, just a little bit more, I don't know how to say, maybe less character. It's just a little bit more, also a little more muddy sounding. So I would choose WA over WB if I have to choose between them. Now, I don't have a WC version, which comes, also in this whole series. If you have one, write me in the comments below. If you have one, how does it sound? Does it sound better than WA or WB? And moving to the third one here, this is a Sovtek 12AX7 LPS. I think that, I don't know what S is, but LP stands for long plate. And this is a long plate construction of a tube. This tube is perhaps my favorite in the Sovtek line, but I don't, I'm gonna describe it this way. The mids are very nice on this tube. The lows are a little bit mushy, and the heights are very grainy, very harsh. Now, if you put this in your V1 or V2 position in guitar amp, it's probably likely that once you're gonna play on your higher frets, it's just gonna sound very like, just not pleasing for the ear. This is how I experienced this tube myself. Now, I know for this tube, this is basically a plate construction that New Sensor makes for Sovtek, rebranded Mallards, and also General I wanted to say General Electric, Genelex Gold Lion series. I give it my shot to try the LPS because, it can differ that much because the tube is basically the same. I can assume that they're probably factory testing them and perhaps, put them in 3 different categories. So one is the lowest, perhaps, is LPS, followed by Mallard, and then comes the Genelex, because that's also how the prices are. I assume this is what's happening. I really wanted to love this tube because I generally really love long plate tubes. They usually have this very amazing bass and mids and nice heights. But this tube is not like that. I tell you what, I prefer way over. I prefer the JJ ECC83S, which is a current production long plate, over this one. Just, I'm not gonna spend money for a Mallard reissue or Genelex because they're basically the same tube, and if I'm not happy with this Sovtek, I'm pretty sure that can be that much far off, So yeah, write me in the comments if you happen to have a new made Mallard or a Genelex, and if you have also LPS, and do they sound different? Tell me, I'm definitely not gonna purchase a modern made Mallard, I'm rather gonna look for vintage ones. So that's what it is. Oh, here is one curiosity factor. I have a New Sensor made, but this is a vintage New Sensor. This is a tube. This one is called 6N2P. This is a Russian, or should I say Soviet, equivalent to ECC83 12AX7. Just the difference is that this heater is runs on 6 volts, not 12. So that would perhaps be called in Western language 6AX7. So I never tried this tube. I need to get the tube converter to try in order to try it. But for what I can tell, it is identical in structure of Sovtek. So my assumption is that in this New Sensor factory in Russia, they're basically producing the same tube on the same toolings, just they changed the heaters. So very interesting. They're basically identical tubes. I spot basically no difference. And this would be definitely my favorite current made Russian tube, a reissue of Tung-Sol. This tube would also in the category come the closest to the vintage sound. This tube has a really nice smooth drive and nice defined mids. The bass, it's okay, but I think that just overall has this kind of a little vintage coating to it, if you can put it that way. And this will be definitely my favorite choice from New Sensor, followed by, I would say, the Electro Harmonix Gold Pin. Those are very solid tubes, and yeah, I never had a problem with them. They always work to me. They seem to be very, very reliable, and yeah, like I say, they work. I also had just a little other information and also tried some other power tubes from New Sensor, from Electro Harmonix and Sovtek, and they were just fine. I'm using 606s. They were just fine. They did their job just perfectly. So overall, I think New Sensor is a good choice. I personally prefer JJ just a little bit more because I think their preamp tubes are just have a little more character to it. But overall, it's a good choice. It's reliable, and also it doesn't cost you a lot, which is great. If you don't want to spend too much money, new sensor products should be good for you. I assume so. So anyways, hope you find this video informative. Let me know if you have any reissued Svetlanas or reissued Mallards or Genelecs that I never tried, which I'm also not that much eager to try this. I say I'm trying some other vintage tubes, but if you have some of them, write me in the comments below. I'll be very curious what you're thinking. So I wish everyone a great day. Cheers.